A lot of the AI products today are literally just automations with better marketing. They work great in demos, but when real users start to use them, they fall apart. And the confusion really lies in the fact that founders are calling automation AI, and tools like N8N are so powerful that they make it really hard to tell the difference. And that's the main problem. The problem isn't automation, it's mistaking automation for product. If you're new here, my name is Muso. I'm co-founders of Fabrika, a product studio that designs softwares for entrepreneurs like you. And I want to define the difference between AI and automation today and give you a couple of thoughts that you can take back with you in whatever project you're building. Firstly, let's define AI automation. So the easiest way to understand automation is to really think about it like a workflow. It's a series of steps that follows one after the other, and your data is manipulated, transformed, sent to external APIs, and none of that information processing happens within the automation layer. So automation is very deterministic. It assumes that the last stage was successful and it continues onwards, and if it doesn't, it throws up an error. So as a result, the simplest way to think about automation is if-then statements. So it is a program that does if and then it continues to do that until it generates an output. And I think that's really important to understand because that impacts what you receive as a user or what your end users receive in an automation product. Usually in automation products, states are pretty shallow, and that's a fancy way of saying it doesn't have good memory. So it can't remember conversations between you and another user. It doesn't store that information in a way that is easy to retrieve. And every time you use it, you're basically starting from scratch. Operationally, to automation is a laborious process. Every additional step you want to add into an automation, you have to add one more if statement or one more blob into that automation path. That adds latency or some bumps in the road, which makes the automation product a bit slower. Automation is great for moving manual processes, repeatable processes off of humans, and it allows you to have more efficiency for things that are laborious, that are pretty standardized. But it doesn't change what's possible. It doesn't invent new opportunities for you in the way that AI does. So the other alternative from automation is AI software. It has its own custom backend, which can support persistent memory, so it can remember individual users, it can remember a lot of information about itself as a product, as well as permissions and other things you need for software to run properly. This is software that's built with AI at the heart of it. Unlike automation, which calls in AI or brings in AI through an API from an external vendor, AI software is built with software as part of the tool. So AI software, regardless of how it's implemented, has persistent memory. So it can remember users, it can remember you from your coworkers or whoever else is using the product, and it can give unique insights based on previous sessions, previous conversations that you've asked it, and it can use that historical information to refine future sessions. And the big thing about AI software, regardless of the implementation, is you can run it concurrently. And concurrently is a fancy way of saying you can have multiple people using the same product all at once without it breaking. And each additional user doesn't actually impact the speed or the quality of the product if the AI software is built well. Those are good definitions of the two unique paths that we can go on. But I think what would be great to help you make the best decision is to see how those two paths stack up for whatever you have in mind of building. The big things to consider when building software, regardless of whether you want AI or automation, are really questions about how are people going to use it, what do you want people to do while they're using it, and how does that allow for users to have their desired outcome from the product. So are you enabling their success? And to answer that question, I think it's important to ground that decision in really 5 key pillars. And these key pillars derive from what you're expecting your users to do in your product. The first one has to do with state and memory. Are you looking for your users to have the same session every time they log on to your product? And the answer to that gives you an answer to which path to choose. When you're thinking of the AI automation route, states and memory tend to be session dependent. So when a user uses your automation, the storage is usually shallow, so it wouldn't allow for historic sessions to be pulled in. It wouldn't create user memory. So every time a user uses your automation, it would be like their first session. Whereas AI software is built with a backend that allows us to store information on their session and enrich every information from the past session. So the question that you should be asking yourself is, do I want my users to start from scratch every time they use the product, or do I want the tool that they're using to remember their last conversation and pick back up where they left off? And that should give you an understanding of whether you need state and memory or not. The next question you should ask yourself is, how much load do I expect to have in my system? This allows us to answer questions around concurrency. And concurrency is really determined on how the software works. With AI automation, it's usually more linear. So as you're having one user access the data, that creates bottlenecks that doesn't allow you to scale that service to other users or provide that service to other users. Whereas in AI software, it is built scalably so you can have many more concurrent users. A good way to think about this is if you've created a product that is built with AI automations, the chances of you being able to reproduce that product and sell it to 10 users is very low, because you have to create that same automation 10 times for those 10 users to be able to use it at the same time. However, with AI built software, you can add in things like authentication so that each individual user can have 10 sessions on one app versus 10 sessions on 10 different apps. So you're able to build in multi-tenancy. Great, so we figured out concurrency, we figured out state. The next question you need to ask yourself is, what do I do when things fail? So automation is generally prone to failing more than AI software. And this is a general statement. It's not necessarily always true, but because both really depend on the execution of the person building the tools. But in general, automation fails because of the external links that are involved in building automation nodes. So if you're, for example, in your automation hitting ChatGPT and there's an outage on ChatGPT, your automation will fail. Whereas in AI software, you can build in controls, you can build in specific mitigation tools so that you can avoid catastrophic failures. Not to say that those mitigation strategies aren't available in automation, they are. However, automation relies on pauses, retries, breaks, which are specific steps in that workflow that the automation engine can trigger to retry, and those are functional. However, if you're going back to our example, having an issue with ChatGPT, no matter how many times you retry ChatGPT, it's actually not going to give you an output because the external service provider is broken. And unfortunately, creating automations with secondary or additional vendors that they can swap out to is more complex knowledge, and you're going down a more difficult implementation path that will slow your end product. So in general, if you're looking to mitigate failure, AI software route is probably the way you want to go. Great, now we have those three pieces figured out. The next thing that we need to figure out is user experience. So you should really ask yourself before picking which of the two paths that you want to go on, how should my users experience my app or product? And the answer to that question will kind of give you a good idea of where you should be on those two paths. With the AI automation route, it does a really great job of creating a backend that does a function, whatever the request is, really well. But it falls short of doing the front end part of software, which is where your users are going to engage with your product. And you can solve the front end part of this issue using vibe coding tools or building one from scratch yourself. However, being able to manage connecting the two, the backend automation and the front end, is extremely difficult. Additionally, it's also challenging to pass that information seamlessly between an automation tool like N8N and a front-end tool that's built externally. So those pieces are difficult. With AI software, on the other hand, though, you do have that part of it. You build the system where the front end and the back end are integrated, and regardless of whether it's pulling data or if it's sending data back to the back end, that pipeline is pretty smooth and scalable and efficient. Additionally, you are also able to pass error message, success messages in a more seamless fashion. That's really the gold standard when you're thinking of user experience, because there's nothing more frustrating than having to go back and forth trying to figure out what went wrong in your product, and it kind of helps lower user frustration. And the fifth thing that you really need to think about is defensibility. If you are a business or an entrepreneur that is looking to white label or resell a tool, defensibility becomes a very important thing that you need to start thinking about. And the key distinctions is really automation is configuration. It's being able to customize a specific workflow to an individual's needs, whereas software is accumulation. You're able to create experiences for users based on data that you're receiving and allow them to solve problems because you have the ability to aggregate more information together. And that data, the feedback, the usage history compounds over time, and all of that is competitive information that you can accumulate, you can use to refine your products, and use to offer your customers more solutions. With automation, however, you're not able to see that unless you're logging each activity or each session that users are running your automation, and even then the logs are pretty shallow because they're showing you what the automation ran versus what a user did during that session. With that in mind, it's important to also realize that most successful AI companies own three things. They own the data, they own the systems, and they also own the user experience. And automation offers very little to none of that. I know that's a lot to go through, but maybe it would be easier if I walk through a product that we've built here at our company. So we recently launched an AI voice agent tool for one of our customers. And the tool is really interesting because a lot of the competitors in this space are AI automation tools, where they call AI from an external service provider and use tools like N8N to enrich that data, to aggregate that data and give users an output. The biggest issue we saw in that is companies that were buying these products were unable to scalably white label them. So they're having significant challenges of being able to take that product that works really well, package it with their own branding, with their name, and sell it to their customers or their users. So our client wanted to leverage this opportunity, and they contracted us to build a tool that is truly concurrent, scalable, and has a robust backend to support all of the features that we're building. And our tool is able to achieve that because it is AI software. It is software that's built with AI at the heart of it, and it is software that is scalable. So our software product is truly one of a kind and is built to solve a particular problem. It has a custom convex-based backend that is scalable and robust, and really no matter what our client throws at it, it will live up to the expectation. So with that in mind, some closing thoughts. I think automation is really great for internal workflows, prototyping, and allows you to find efficiencies for the mundane, the repetitive tasks that you need to do every day. That in itself is a significant advantage if that's the problem your business is having. However, automation is a make-work project. It's not scalable. It requires a lot of tweaking, adjusting, fixing, and it isn't really something that I would feel comfortable reselling to my customers. With that in mind, the harsh truth of AI and the space that we're in is AI is only competitive if it's embedded in your software and if it offers customers value. If AI isn't in your software in a meaningful way, then it probably doesn't mean much. Automation seems really impressive when you're looking at it because it is a lot, but it might not all be too useful. The key takeaway I want you to take out of this conversation is real software is pretty slow. It's not something that you can build yourself. You probably need to work with other teams or use services like Anti-Gravity, Cursor to do the heavy lifting for you. It takes a bit of time to get working, but once it works, the chances of you having to worry about it day to day become lower and lower as you're developing more of it. If you like this video on learning about tech and how we think about tech at Fabrika, please give us a follow and we'd be more than happy to chat with you about your AI software dreams. Thank you, and follow for more.